and liberty. I'm your host here, Chef McFarlane. Welcome to Unfiltered. Let's get started. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Unfiltered. I'm your host, Chef McFarlane. I must appreciate the respect and the opportunity to learn from one another. Our stories are powerful and unique in the world. It took a pandemic like this for us to think.
I have focused on using my art as a tool.
Because the opportunities are vast.
And we have a crucial moment on which to engage in that study now. We want more people on board for justice, equality, and liberty. I'm your host here, Chef McFarlane. Welcome to Unfiltered. Let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Unfiltered. Thank you for joining us on this lovely Sunday evening. We want to welcome all of our guests and all of our incredible group of panelists joining us from the USA. Thank you so much. You know what to do when you join the show. Start a watch party, like, share, encourage others to join. We're going to have a very impactful conversation today. And you know how to participate. Send us your questions in the comment section. And also leave us a nice comment if you're enjoying what we're talking about. We love all of your support. And to our incredible panelists, welcome to the show. We have Duane Edwards, we have Adrienice, we have Kenon Pratt, and we have Zulu joining us this evening. And we might have a couple of other of our friends from the USA coming on with us. And my co-host today is going to be Kenon Pratt, and he's going to be co-facilitating the conversation with me. So, welcome, panelists. Thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yes.
So I'll just for the benefit of our viewers, I will go around just so that you all can state what state you are joining us from. Because as I understand, those states in the United States are like nations of their own. So we don't want anybody feeling left out here. So we'll start with our only lady in the house, Adrienice. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm calling from Bowie, Maryland.
Oh, nice. And Duane.
Oh, we coming out of Virginia.
Virginia. I like it. Zulu.
I am coming out of Greenbelt, Maryland.
Maryland in the house. And of course, Kenon is coming to us from Virginia, but I often associate him with Washington, D.C. for some reason. Kenon, your mic is off.
All right, cool. I'm back.
Yes. So, Kenon, I want to throw this to you since you're my co-host and co-facilitator. How are you feeling after this monumental, incredible, historical moment in the democracy that is the United States, but also the democracy that is what I think a majority of the world aspire to? How are you feeling?
I can say I'm torn, man. You know, it's just another day in America at this point. We've been here before. I'm gonna let you talk then about that first. We'll come back to mine.
Right, right. What about you, Zulu? What's the temperature like? How are you feeling
I
about
mean,
all of what has transpired?
for me, it's not lost on me the historical context of it. It's not lost on me that the the importance of people looking up and seeing the first female vice president that's a brown skinned woman that's educated. However she got up there, however she got that way, I think psychologically it will have effect that's a positive at the end of the day for a lot of young kids who are like, okay, because when you talk to younger children, they kind of get it, but they kind of don't. They don't know what to do so much because they just got, no, the young generation is just going to do what they want to do. That's I'm not worried about the young generation. It's more our generation, the ones in between, that I'm like, we can go one way or the other. But me personally, I felt like it is kind of going backwards to where we came from. Like, yeah, Donald Trump is not wasn't an answer to anything, but Biden kind of represents that old empire that we're going back to. Everything this empire has ever stood for, from the jailing of its citizens, from the abuse from police, from giving police way too much power to now they think that they have this authority to, oh, we picked the president. No, no. You're not allowed to have a political affiliation. It's in the laws. You're not allowed to do that. You're the cops. I can't have cops walking around saying, oh, I'm a Trump supporter. I'm not going to do things because I'm a Trump supporter, or vice versa. But I psychologically, I think it's a good thing. End of the day, but it's hard to tell. It's been one day.
Just a little word to us in the house. Please, when we are not talking, if we have our mics off, and if you have another device, because I understand we might have other devices just to view what we're saying, just have that on mute, just so that we don't have a rebound effect of the sound. Thank you. All right, Zulu, that's a very good perspective. I'm just doing a check-in to see how everybody's feeling. What about you, Duane? How are you feeling after this historic time in your country?
You muted, my brother.
I'm feeling good. I'm good. I'm feeling good in the sense that not too many times I can see the system that is in place actually working. You know, and since things haven't been working in my opinion for so long, just to see a process on such a large scale as this election actually work. You know what I mean? We're in the midst of the pandemic, we got people to the polls. We was able to keep people 6 feet. People was able to get in and out. And then there was the election. And it went through, to my opinion, went through seamlessly. A lot of them was elections that had more issues at the election process. I mean, the actuality of the votes than on this one. This actually went. It just we have to make sure and double check it. So just from that beginning, I say I feel good. And then plus the push that a lot of people have been making, the sacrifice, the time, people sharing the story. Because one thing about my community, we don't get into too much sharing our stories. You know, but you have more people of color sharing their experiences, sharing those times when the police had rolled up on them and roughed them up a little bit. And just because and then break it down even further, Black men have been sharing. We have been talking. I've been seeing Black men talk to their kids about the things that's going around. So I'm motivated. I'm excited, but I do see a lot of work. I do see a lot of work. I like the fact that more of my community are paying attention. You know, man, because if you don't, how many times we talk to somebody and they have a certain view, but you don't have no facts behind that. And so, but now I see people actually looking, paying attention, holding political people accountable, because that's how I think our system has run amok, because we give these people a dime when we let them go. But now, from this election, these last 4 years, and then the previous 8 years, we're paying attention. So I feel great, especially about the grassroots organizers on whatever side, whatever your issue is. It's going to be easier to organize because people have an example of the system working, and so it's great. It's a good time for me.
Okay, thank you for that, and hopefully the connection gets better on your side, Duane, because you were making some important points, and some of it got stalled in the buffering. But nevertheless, I'm sure we will communicate that we have some time, folks, to really have a good conversation. So whatever is wrong with our technology, we'll fix it as we go along. But we will have this conversation, and we have some time. Thank you for joining us, Denis. Adrienice, how are you feeling? You're the singular power lady on the panel right now. So please convey from our sisters and our mothers and our daughters your thoughts.
I'm still trying to process exactly how I felt, because I had the chance to go down there and see the celebration in DC last night. And just being with the crowd and kind of seeing how people responded was amazing to see different people come together. I think I saw the Arab news station out there recording. So it was just amazing to see so many different people come together through this. Did I think it was impossible? No. But did I think it was going to come right now? Not at all. So I think I'm just amazed that the kids have something to aspire to be. Because never was I ever told that I could be the vice president, or not even the president. Like, that's not even something that women were told to dream about. So the fact that the kids are growing up in a different time where they can see somebody looks like them in a position that wasn't even told to them that they could be, that is amazing to me. So I'm still trying to process exactly how I feel about it. I'm a little concerned for her as a woman, just because look at what Michelle went through. You know, all the harassment that she got just off of being a woman alone. You know, she couldn't wear her arms out. She couldn't do this. She couldn't do that. And I've already heard comments from men specifically saying, you know, she's attractive. Kamala Harris is attractive. So she's already being hypersexualized. So that for me is like, okay, so what more would this woman have to do to prove that she is worthy of the position she has acquired for herself? So I'm concerned for her, but I'm also very proud of her. And like she said, she won't be the last. So that'll be awesome to see how many more come after her.
Very well said. And Denis, you just joined us, and I would dare to tell our audience that you're joining from Ohio. Am I correct?
Oh, yes, Chef. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Oh, I just want to extend my greetings to the co-panelists and to thank you for the opportunity to share with such brilliant minds. And I'm looking forward to have a very interesting conversation with you guys.
Thank you. So, Kenon, over to you, and take it away.
All right. So, well, you know how my favorite term when it comes to voting in this system, right?
Yeah.
The illusion. the illusion of inclusion, as I call it. So with that being said, you know, I feel conflicted because on one half, I want to see some type of change, a progressive move in our government, but because I believe it's an illusion, I don't really see any change coming until we create the change. And one of those things that she mentioned, and even Duane mentioned, I agree that this gives something people to look up to and someone to, like, you know, aspire to be. But there was a time on the plantation where I might have been out in the field and been like, man, it looks nice in there right now. And so that person who was working on the plantation inside the house was my aspiration, but they were still working for massa. So even like somebody else made a point yesterday, they said, just because you redecorate the White House or the master's house doesn't change it from being the master's house. That's how I really feel.
All right. So let me recap a little things that came out of last night, and then we'll get your thoughts. We'll get you to react to it. So I was watching Kamala Harris and Joe Biden deliver the victory speech, and folks, I'm not gonna lie, I never cry for politicians, but I teared up. I don't know if it was just too boring. I mean, I teared up because I don't know if the last 4 years have just been so bad that, you know, that was so profound in the way that he was trying to communicate what they think they are trying to do over the next 4 years. So I found that really touching, but I'm not, it's not missed on me the nuanced feelings that many of you have expressed. And so I just want to recap a few things that was said and then get all of us to react. So he talked about us putting the era of demonization behind us. He talked about stop treating people we disagree with as enemies. He talked about the fact that this is a time for healing. He talked about the fact that racial justice is a priority in America. And he talked about the fact that all of us, not just people from the right, he said everybody needs to sort of come to that mindset of collectiveness, of working for the greater good. So to all of you, I know you have different views on a number of issues, but how do you react to his victory message?
For me, the reason why racial tensions or racial justice is kind of needed is because of the crime bill he wrote. So for me, I've yet to hear him say, yes, the crime bill was a mistake. We did a lot of mistakes. I want input from everybody who was affected by this crime bill so we can fix it, get away from this mistake that was really, because it devastated not just the Black families, it did devastate the Black communities, but it devastated poor communities. There's so many poor citizens who in jail who aren't even guilty of their crimes, but because they couldn't afford a competent lawyer, they couldn't afford a lawyer that didn't have 500 caseloads because he's a public defendant, they had to take a plea bargain. And that plea bargain says you have to admit to being guilty now. Now you're a felon. Now you're removed from the voter rolls. I feel like the problem is so much deeper, and he's such an integral architect in the problem that it's just hard for me to take his words sincerely, because it's like you're not addressing the fact that you played a role in creating this. If you address it at least and say, yes, I messed up. I admit it. We did a lot of wrong things and we're going to fix it now. Sure, I'm on your side. Let's fix it now. Let's get past that, what you did, and let's fix it. But it seems to me just like it's, hey, worry about this. Don't worry about what was. I feel like Donald Trump was almost a setup to get everybody so angry, so like just, oh, we gotta get rid of this guy, that when it was given to Biden, it's like, oh, yes, we're safe now. I'm like, but we're not. We're not safe. He could have picked so many other people on that panel. He could have picked Tulsi Gabbard, who's a a Marine who was logical, who was not sponsored by any of the big corporate parties, but he picked the one person who's kind of helped him build this whole problem to begin with. Like, she was in California arresting people for marijuana. That to me is insane. Like, in California, that's the place you're arresting people for marijuana. That means you are going out of your way to get to people. And she called him racist during the presidential election, during the when they're still running against each other. And then all of a sudden now they've just the whole disingenuous of it is just kind of like, look, don't be disingenuous. I can't trust you. If you were disingenuous from the start, how can I trust you to be honest with what you're saying? And he's a politician. He's been there for 47 years. He knows how to speak. He knows how to speak. So yes, I'm not surprised. He has a team of writers who are like, this works. Donald Trump said that. Let's stay away from saying those things. I mean, honestly, if Bernie Sanders had gotten a nomination, Bernie Sanders knows how to speak so much better. I doubt we even have a election this close. I know they like to say Bernie couldn't have won it. I'm like, nah. Every time that man gets on television, everybody listens to him. It's like, oh, you're not crazy. So I feel like it was always going to go to as soon as they picked him, I knew he was going to win. Because it's kind of like, well, they're clearly setting up for him. They're clearly setting up for him. They're clearly, there's no democratic process for the Democratic nomination, which is kind of weird. That's kind of weird. You're the Democrats and your process isn't democratic. And when asked about it with Hillary, they were like, well, we are a private party. We can do what we want. That was their answer. And it's like, okay, hey, it's the truth, right? You are a private party. You can do what you want. But damn, like damn. Like that's a big, so I don't forget things like that. It's hard for me to just ignore it because that just happened 4 years ago. I'm not talking 30 years ago. I'm talking 6 years ago. That happened 4 years ago. They didn't address it. They didn't apologize for it. Instead, they blamed all the Green Party people who were put off by that. Like, look, nobody owes you a vote. Nobody has to vote for you. A vote for a third party isn't a vote for Donald Trump. A vote for a third party is for that party. You either believe in democracy or you don't. Like, that's it.
Denis, you want to come in here, so jump in.
I'm really happy with the previous speaker, and I think that is one of the biggest issue we will have to contend with as a society. There is no perfect society. That's my first point. And there is no perfect human, and there is no perfect democracy. With the election of Biden, I think if we try to look at Biden from the optic of Biden himself, we will have a better understanding of who he is as a politician, as a father, as a grandfather. I don't want to be an apologist for him, but when the crime bill was written and passed in the Senate, it was almost 100%. All the then senators, white, black, Chinese, everybody voted for the bill. The problem is Biden was a senator at the time, so he was caught in it. So my personal take is, yes, he is guilty. His hand is in the cookie jar. But who will be the best candidate to fix that problem? I think the person who caused the problem should be held responsible to fix the problem. And I think I share my brother's sentiment, but I want us to look at the election of Biden and Kamala as a second chance, an opportunity for us to work and demand more from our society, rather than be pessimistic. Because now, if we don't hold Biden and Kamala Harris to the book to fix the problem that they themselves they join in creating, then we will not be holding to our own part of the bargain. That's the first point I want to respond as what my brother just said. And now I want also to look at the election of Biden and Kamala from another standpoint, that of persistence. For many people who don't know, this is probably the third time Biden is trying to run for office. And and he has been persistent for 40 years, or close to 40 years, before he got elected as a president. And now I want people to draw the inspiration from his persistence. Let's keep the politics aside. Let's put the moment in front of us and look at what it takes to try to get something for 40 years. You know, it shows a level of determination that I want to see him actualize it in solving the problem. And one thing I want to be very happy, I want to talk about Biden's case is because he actually said he was sorry for the bill they passed. He passed the bill with good intentions, and it didn't turn out the way he had hoped. Now, what we need to do is hold his foot to those statements. Let him help solve the problem now. We have the problem, we have police brutality, we have a militarized police. Let them solve that problem. We have Black and brown people being arrested and marginalized in this country. Let them solve the problem. He has been crying for 40 years to, have that opportunity to solve the problem he thinks he created. Let's give him the chance to solve that problem. And as far as Kamala Harris is concerned, I think I try to look at the bigger picture more than the small individual, because her journey has been a map, has been a compass, not a map. Her journey points the direction that if you are a brown or Black or minority child, you can hope, you can aspire. Yes, it doesn't mean that Black and minorities have the same opportunities like white folks, but we are trying to perfect the society we are in. We have a choice. We can castigate all their gains and be pessimistic about it, or we can play an active role in forcing our politicians to pass the bills that we want to work, that will work for us. So for me, I look at it with more optimism than being pessimistic about the whole thing, because at the end of it, it's politics, it's human science, it's how we manage ourselves. No one is perfect, so we have to deal with this imperfect situation to get a perfect outcome that we desire, or something close to perfect. So I think I am still optimistic. And I think this election wasn't more about Biden, it was more about Donald Trump. It was a referendum on Donald Trump, his rhetoric, his divisiveness, and all his taxing policy and all of that. And I think that if we look at it in that light and try to see what we can make out of this situation, hey, if the world gives you lemon, what do? You make lemonade out of it. So that's how I want us to look at this situation. Thank you very much.
All right, good point. Duane, jump in.
Yeah. I just, the crime bill and Vice President-elect Harris' time as a prosecutor, and in the hurt and the pain that's come on the Black community and really the country from those, that's a real thing, but I think I prescribe more so of the let's move forward, and because even if I get an apology, then once I get an apology, then I'm going to ask why. And then we're still in the same position. We're not moving forward. I actively see that this person, the ones that we all like to highlight as the key proponents in a bill that was passed by Congress, they're the key proponents, but they've been like my brother said, he's dedicated his life for public service. Now, what I know about people, we're wrong. We get things wrong, and it would be great if I had an opportunity to write that on, and then at least in America, and I know Kenon gonna get me on this, but it's set up as a second chance land. You know what I mean? Now, is it operated like that in the Black community? Look, I had my ticket down the road, what we called to the penitentiary, came out, had to fight and argue to get my rights to vote back. Check the box. I can speak from that. it's supposed to be a second chance. Now, I want a second chance, but I'm not going to give my politician a second chance. I'm not going to allow him or her to be part of the solution when they was a part of the problem. And then as far as like this administration, to me, it was old thing. It was Republican, Democrats, but it's really about being competent. I feel this voter in America feels that Donald Trump was not competent for the job of the president of the United States, and I feel that he was put there. We all should be ashamed for that. We all share a burden of that man had got into that position. And then I feel that the work that I've seen, I know personally, and I've seen other people do in the process work, if you're ineffective in your job, then you got to go. I don't care if it's if you're a teacher, if you're athlete, if you don't do your job, you got to go. And that's really what happened here. It wasn't about Republican and Democrat. He didn't do his job. He didn't do a good job. You made some people happy, but we need a better job, especially during the pandemic. And I bring the pandemic because black men have been being murdered in this country the whole time. Black women have been being pushed to the side the whole time. Our kids have not been getting in advanced classes the whole time. If it wasn't for, and it's sad to say, if it wasn't for the coronavirus, because I've been trying to get people involved in the community and to put pressure on politicians so they can't go in there and vote yes when they should vote no. And then we couldn't get enough people out until nobody had anything to do tomorrow. I didn't have to go to work. Work was shut down. Yeah, I'll go down there and protest. Yeah, I'm going to finally tell them why I'm mad. I'm going to finally use my voice. And when black communities, when America started using their voice, them people in DC, the people down in Richmond, in my capital city, they got to listen to us because they work for me. They work for us. But they don't know unless we speak to them. And they ain't coming down here to speak to me. I got to go to them. But I had something to do because I had a clock to punch. But not with the COVID. Now, me and my guys are gonna go down there and we're gonna ask some questions. And we're gonna pick it. And then balls move. Because when you stop money, unfortunately, people start listening. And the money stopped. And now somebody needs to fix it. Now we're sick. Somebody needs to fix it. So this is a perfect time for people to get involved, for those views to get to the table so we can influence, especially black communities, so we can influence why my neighborhood potholes don't get fixed when that neighborhood potholes get fixed. We need to have a voice, and that's what we're doing. People are speaking, and it's a beautiful thing. Like now we're on this. People are speaking, and that's what it needs. It goes to speaking, then action, and then 45 is 46.
Very well put, my brother. Kenon, jump in anytime.
All right. Well, as you said earlier, that I would get on you about that. I mean, the whole thing is that when it comes to progress in this country, we as people of color are still in the same boat that we were in 1865. We own 1/2 of the wealth in this country to this day. Our politicians have been doing the same thing over and over again, and we've been expecting different results by just putting a new person in there. But as I always say, there's a left wing and there's a right wing, but in the middle, there's a bird flapping those. So ultimately, if we can keep that in mind and we keep memory of what our politicians have done and hold them accountable instead of giving them a second chance, because their second chances year after year as their politicians. So I believe in second chances like everyone should get. But if you have year after year after year after year, you haven't shown that you're going to change your stripes. Why now, after almost a lifetime, should I expect you to change your stripes now and do what you should have done years ago? It's like you said, Zulu said earlier about, it was just a few years ago when he was in office. And what our current president said in his debate, he goes, "Who built the cages, Joe? Who built the cages?" And what did Joe say? He had nothing to say, but now people out here crying and screaming and saying, "Oh no, these kids are going to be let out of their cages," without realizing who actually put them in there. So with that being said, I also will go to the point that when it comes to people having short-term memories, people are also attached to the situation very emotionally. And that's the one thing that politics has done well, is trick us into reacting emotionally to things because they resonate with us. For example, Joe Biden is attached to Obama. And when Obama got elected, what were we doing outside the street? My president is black, my Lambo is blue. And then we still saw black folks keep getting murdered on TV while he did nothing. Now, was he supposed to do everything? No. But we still saw the same problems arise while we had a black man and a whole black family walking around in office. And yet we saw Nancy Pelosi pull out in a dashiki. And now we have a black woman as his vice president. So therefore, it makes us more emotionally responsive to that, because now we have our 94% black women who vote Democratic year after year. Now they're happy as hell. And I understand it from an optics point. But if we go back to the original point about that left wing and right wing being on the same bird and they're working for the same masters, all we're doing is changing the face of our masters. Like I said, you in the slave house. It's an aspiration. It looks good. But how does it really create change if they're still working for the same people and all they're doing is pandering to us to get our vote, to participate in our own demise? So now we believe we're a part of it, but as things continue to get worse, we only have ourselves to blame because we vote and we basically said, okay, I'm okay with what happens now that I put this person in office. So good luck. I mean, we still got till January.
All right, Adrienice, you got a whole lot to respond to, so jump in.
Man, oh man. Okay, so yes, I agree with most of what you guys are saying. The president is just the face at the end of the day. And I just feel that it's up to us to continue to vote. It's not just about voting the president in, it's about local voting. That's something that we don't do enough of. So it was just amazing to see all the people come together who had 74 million. I think that was the number of votes that came in for the presidential election this year. So let's hope that we can do the same, keep this momentum going when it comes to local voting. And actually know who we're voting for. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, on the ballot, I had no idea who half the people were. Like, other than the president, I had no idea. So I guess it's up to us to educate each other and not always look for somebody else to educate us when it comes to how to vote and who are we voting for and why does it matter to vote, and get our young people on board early. So as soon as they turn 18, they should be knowing who they're voting for. So I think it's just going to take a lot of effort and that we can do it. Like, I think using, like, I saw a lot of rappers this year coming out and using their platform to get people on board with voting. So I thought that was huge because, I mean, that's our culture. You know, let's just be real. Like, people want to hear music. People, that's what they want to hear. All last night, that's all they were doing was playing music. Had nothing to do with the election, but that's what they wanted to feel. They wanted to feel like everybody was in on an agreement with songs. So, I mean, the music plays a huge factor. And I think if we can constantly encourage artists to keep using their platforms to encourage each other to vote, then we'll be able to get more votes on the local level and not just the national level. So it's going to take a lot more effort. It's not just about the president. What can we do locally?
Okay, let me jump in if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to touch on when we keep talking about this voting process. And I've already mentioned the fact that I believe it's an illusion of inclusion. But I want you to ask yourself, in any nation around the world, who actually voted their power away from the oppressive people who actually stole it through murder and strife? Even our own country that we live in, the revolution wasn't fought. They didn't vote and go to a voting booth to get their power. They fought on the streets and they fought in the fields from it. Not everyone was involved. It wasn't like somebody was sitting there writing, speaking of songs. Someone sat there and wrote the Star Spangled Banner while a war was going on. So ultimately, I don't believe that this voting process will actually bring any true change. All it does is I feel that we're kind of being swayed into certain things through the media. Like, every time you heard someone say something about Trump, we got to get him out of here. That was the exact same word or phrase that people kept using. And I understand why people were traumatized by his rhetoric and maybe boosting his supporters to act a little bit more crazy over the last 4 years. But with that being said, why would you be so concerned with your president doing that when he's using he's using the base to keep him propped up? Just like any politician does. They're doing the same thing to us now. We're out there mostly dancing in the street, being excited over a new master entering our house. And I just find that crazy to me, especially when we watched them for over almost 50 years. Screw us. Democratic cities are torn to pieces.
Well, see, the one thing about the voting process is it's not just picking the candidate and going into the booth and picking somebody. That's ineffective. You're giving somebody, how many jobs have you had that somebody hired you that nobody had no type of insight or say so in what you was doing on a daily basis? But we elect people in the office and then send them about their merry way. We go back to our bills. We go back to our leagues. We go back to our everything. And we don't stay in their face. We don't stay calling them. Because if you stay in their face, you got to put the pressure. You know, stories move the needle. You know, but I mean, like I spoke before, it's been years trying to get people to say, you know what? How can I say if I have been 100% used something, how can I say it don't work? No, I don't work. I don't work right. You know what I mean? And one thing in America is if it's not like President Obama was not a black president. He was the president of the United States. That's why a lot of black Americans who don't like him, because he was an American president. He wasn't just a president of the Republican Party. We had a man that was in office that never came off the campaign trail. That means you could go, hey, look, you had a 4-year run, but you was ineffective. That's how I look at it. I'm Black America. Trump used to be our guy. He used to be our guy. But yeah, it's good. We move past it. But this is the thing. This is the time after the election while we counting that we need to come together because we got work to do tomorrow. Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, we got work to do tomorrow. We got a pandemic. We got student debt. We got stock market. There's a lot of stuff we collectively. And if we keep on going backwards over stuff that who's going to answer for it? Who's going to answer for it?
I agree with you wholeheartedly, Duane, and when it comes to us having more work to do and holding our politicians that we vote accountable after we selected them. However, you mentioned it earlier when it came to COVID-19 and how it affected society from sitting down and actually being bored enough to go out in the streets at times, maybe to protest, and also being more vocal and talking about it.
Not bored. They just didn't have priorities for their responsibilities to be to. So they had the time to go down to the city hall and down in all
time or bored. I feel you. Maybe my phrase could be different. However, there were some people who were bored, which made them go out in the streets because they had nothing better to do. So we're going to that. Now that we're at a point, let's say we get back to a point when people are working again, just like after every election, and people are back to doing the normal things. How do you expect people that don't even understand our own democracy, that don't understand the electoral college, to then turn around and hold their politicians accountable when they're worried about the day-to-day? They're paying their bills, they're going to work, they're watching TV, teaching their kids, and so on and so forth. But then you add this element.
I'm sorry to cut you off. That's the burden of being a citizen. That's the responsibility of being a citizen that we fought for, that the civil rights movement, that's what we want to be included. But guess what? That means you got to be educated. You got to be up on stuff, and you got to hold people accountable, just like we're held accountable. We're held accountable to these things. So I'm going to hold you accountable to them.
That's what I know Trev wants to jump back into, though, Duane, is I just want to say that when it comes down to that education that people need to have in order to hold our politicians accountable, the problem is that when you say the civil rights movement, at that time, there weren't over 100 TV stations. There weren't music being pumped out every day. There wasn't WAP playing on the radio. So you know what I'm saying? The people are now being lulled to sleep. People are more focused on playing video games and watching TV and sports than they are. I know people that know children that know stats from players that played 50 years ago, but you ask them something about this country or give them a map and see what they do. So right now we have been lulled to sleep with all this entertainment, all these shiny, pretty things that we don't focus on that on our regular basis until it's time to vote.
Yes, interesting dialogue there. Zulu or Denis or Adrienice, jump in and react to what your fellow
Here's my thing.
Women are saying.
Here's my thing. We say we don't want to go back. We say we want to move forward. But then we elect people who are from the past and say these are the people that are going to do it. I'm a firm believer in democracy. I chose this country because I've read a lot of constitutions. And as a young child, this is the one that made sense to me. But my problem is, you're not running Duane. You're not running Kenon. You know, we have to pick from this pool of people who we've given them more than one chance. We're not talking about giving them just one more chance. Joe Biden has been in politics for 47 years. That's older than me. That's older than what? Most of the people voting? That's older than Trump. To say that now, oh, he's going to be the answer, we're going to give him one more chance. I'm like, look, man, he waited until somebody asked him about the crime bill in 2020 to apologize for it.
Well, part of that problem is our oligarchy system that we live in mixed with nepotism. Due to the fact that how many presidents have been related to each other? We had a little girl get on MSNBC back in 2012 and tell us that 43 out of the 44 presidents were related to each other. I mean, and people call it a conspiracy, but the fact is
royalty. The Kennedys have a seat in Congress. No matter what, there's always the Kennedy in Congress. Right. That seat is theirs. They will not even fill that seat if there's no Kennedy running. And as soon as one wants to run, here you go, sir. Here's your seat.
Hey, all right. One thing about that is I see in the black community all the time. But it's I always got to bring it back to personal accountability. And I wrote this down earlier. Is what part do you play in the process of change, or do we just wait for? You know what I mean? Because there's a part that all of us play.
That's unfair. That's unfair.
No, hear me out.
You have to look at the history.
Two people can have.
Of America.
All right, now, but this.
Let me explain to you why I chose America. Let me explain to you why I chose America.
When there is a process, that now, what number do we have to have? What number does black community have? Honestly, I wish I knew. But there's going to be a number of people that if it's reached, you have to say you have to do some more, or you're going to unveil the lie. You know what I mean? You're gonna have.
When are you running for Congress?
Hey, you know, I remember I'm a black.
Okay.
I'm a black man from Virginia. When you start asking people for money, they don't want to come out that pocket.
That's my point. But
it takes money to go for Congress. You know what I mean?
There's nobody in Congress who's as passionate like you. There's nobody in Congress as passionate like you, from the community like you, talking to the community like you, that wants to do change like you. What we have to pick from is a bunch of people who have told us time and time again, give us the fact that during the COVID, there were commercials from Democrats and Republicans asking for people for money to donate to them. It's like people are out of jobs. People aren't working. You're not giving us more money on the stimulus side, and you're asking us to give you money for your election? That to me is just like, every time I saw one, I just felt disgusted because I'm like, people are suffering. You know? People are suffering. People are struggling to pay their. People are worried about being kicked out of their rentals because everybody's at the grace of the landlords. Right now, most of the memorandums have ended. Technically, every landlord can kick out everybody they want legally. Are they going to do it? Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Mm.
But we know there are some people who have been kicked out. We know this for a fact. In smaller bad communities, we keep going back. You can't say we go forward. Run for election. Crowd surf.
Yeah.
Make money for small dollar donations. Run. If you want to make change, if you're talking about change, and you're talking about changing within the system, but the people in the system are the ones who aren't changing, then forget them. Run. We need more people running. We need more. Like, I'm considering running the next election. I'm even considering running as a Republican, not because I'm necessarily a Republican, but more from like, hey, all right, I'm going to take the votes. I'm going to make you guys seem a little more cultured because you have a little more people now and you have a little more diversity now. Republicans have black people in their party, but I keep saying, show me the African guy. Show me the African woman. Show me the black Republican woman who's in the leadership, who's got like a thick accent, who has an immigrant story. No? Well, then that's a problem. I think the Republican Party is ripe for all 6 of us here. The Republican Party is ripe for us to run for those roles because they want to seem we're not the racist party. Because even Donald Trump, for some of them, was so virulently just like, okay, dude, we agree with you what you're saying on a lot of things, but you can't be saying that in public. You guys say that shit behind doors, man. Like he turned off some Republicans. He turned off a lot of Republicans. So my personal opinion, like I'm contemplating it. I haven't made the decision yet. Run. The more people that are passionate about helping our communities who are like, fine, I can't find a solution in you. I have tried to get a solution in you. You have told me time and time again, end of the day, sorry, son, out of my hands.
Mm.
Then, okay, fine. I'm going to run. I'm going to say, this is what I stand for. This is why I'm running. This is the things I believe in. Vote for me or not. I'm not taking money from any super PACs. Bernie Sanders got lots of his money from a lot of small donor donations. People in this country want normal. That's why Donald Trump won. Everybody thought he was going to be like this normal guy who got in and he's different from politicians. Now, no, those people didn't pay attention to Donald Trump, who has a gold-plated apartment. Like, nobody who has a gold-plated apartment is a humble guy. I'm sorry. There's nothing you can tell me to say that's a humble guy, you know? But the idea was there. The idea that here's this guy who's not a politician. Here's this guy who's just an average Joe guy who's saying things that every average Joe guy says. He's the one that won. That's how he won.
Mm.
So the people are hungry.
So,
okay, can I jump in?
Yes, but before you come in, Denis, I wanted to bring in Adrienice to comment on this. And before that, I want to say this. Record voter turnout. Historical. 74 million people voted for Joe Biden. 70 million people voted for Donald Trump. So, folks, how do you move forward in your country when you have, for all the talk about the rejection of Trumpism and all of this, he still had 70 million. In fact, more people turned out than turned out last time. So let me just put this out to you and see what your thoughts are. So, of course, we know that in America, the Caucasian population is the majority of the folks. So, looking at these results, looking at Donald Trump's tactics, looking at the turnout, moving forward, how do you think your country needs to move forward in a way that includes everybody, so that you don't have somebody who's more tactical and more politically savvy than Donald Trump take advantage of this population of people that would vote for Donald Trump despite everything that you can criticize about him? How do you prevent something like that from happening? Or how do you move forward? Adrienice, and then Denis, you can come in.
It's a tough question. Let me think about it. I'm not exactly sure how to answer that. State your question one more time.
So I'm saying that you have a very divided country. You have 74 million people who voted for change, and you have 70 million people who voted for the same. So we know Donald Trump's weaknesses. How do you prevent another very savvy Republican politician from doing exactly all the things Donald Trump did, except for the over-the-board rhetoric and everything else that we disapprove of from Donald Trump? How do you stop that from happening, given the record turnout for the Republican Party and knowing the demographics of America?
I mean, I'm not sure how we can stop it, because how do we, there will always be racism here. Like, I think that's very clear that we will never get beyond that. There will always be, because it goes from generation to generation. It's ingrained in them. So racism is far from over. We have a long fight. So I would say all we can do is just to continue to help our own to understand the importance of voting, so that way we can keep our numbers high. Like people need to know that their vote matters. And I would say, like everybody else had kind of said, COVID-19 was probably the biggest reason that so many people probably voted this year, because we have excuse after excuse for why we can't make it to the polls to vote. When we have jobs going on and everything else going on, and these may be valid excuses. It may not take away from the fact that I'm a single mother and I just can't get there, or I just can't do it. So there may be a valid excuse for why, but this year was no excuse. Either you wanted to vote or you didn't. So I would just say that, all we can do is just continue to promote it, and continue to educate our people on why it's important. Like Georgia, I think they had strippers who had voting, encouraging, a commercial that had people encouraged to vote. So, I mean, like, we are so creative and we know each other best on how do we encourage each other to vote. So I think if we continue to be creative and continue to put that message out there, people will listen. But you have to be creative to keep up, because these young people, they're not going to just look. I mean, they want to see you come up with it. They want to see you come up with new ideas. They don't want to be told the same thing the same way every time. So we have to continue to be creative, continue to listen to our young people, because they are our future. So, I mean, that's all we can do. That's all we can do.
Good point. I'll just jump in. Just joining us is Dr. Frida Mambo, and she's on the road. So I'll just give her a chance, Denis, to pop in and throw in a few words as we roll on. Doc, come in. You're mute. You're on mute.
Oh yeah, I saw that. I'm sorry. Greetings to everybody on the panel and those watching. I am extremely sorry. I think I missed the time, and I've been out gallivanting, not even doing anything important. So I'm so sorry about that. But I'm glad to join. So I'm gonna be listening and probably jumping.
And you're joining us, if I'm not wrong, from the state of Alabama. Is that correct?
Absolutely, and I am the most radical Democrat in the state of Alabama.
There's no doubt about that. So we're just talking about how we move forward in America, given that there was a record voting, but it's also that two sides made their point. 70 million people turn out for Trump, 74 million people turn out for Biden. Historical by all means, but divided country. So how do you move forward?
Well, I hope we can actually move forward, and I hope that the Biden team actually sticks to, their campaign message with building the country and bringing back, some sanity into the country. Now, even the 70 million people that voted for Trump tells a whole lot, because that is about how many million increase from his last election. It's a huge number. And that tells us that, there is still a huge divide in this country, regardless. People still want the same thing that we've had in the past 4 years. They want the divide. They want the racial issues. They want the demonization of, of women. The decharacterization of this nation. That is what we have seen in the past 4 years. And that tells us that 70+ million people still want that. So it is up to the Biden team, the Biden elected government, to figure out how to bring change, how to bring unity in this country. That is what we need. And that is what the Biden team should. And we as a people, we as Americans, we also need to come together and support this administration in building a united America. That's all we can do.
Very well said. Denis, jump in.
Thank you very much, Mike, and hi to Frida and the others. I want to really ask us to reflect for a moment and ask ourselves some pertinent questions. What is the fundamental survival skill for any creature? It's self-preservation. It's self-interest. So now the question is, what is the self-interest for a Black man in America? What is the self-interest for an Asian in America, an Arab in America? Now, I think amongst all of these groups, African Americans and Africans like me, we are the only ones without a super PAC pushing for our specific agenda. The world is governed by self-interest. Is it a perfect world? No. And that is where Donald Trump and his followers come in. That's where you see the elections. Even though Republicans did not approve of Donald Trump, they still voted on their ticket because he represented their interest. Big companies, they like Donald Trump, even though he is a very controversial figure, we must accept that, but they still voted for him. You have people who align behind the bandwagon of the Trumpism, not because they really approve of Trump. No. I think Trump is like, for me, it's like the Peter Pan of politics. He doesn't grow old. Where he gets in, he stays there like that, and he just lives with the moment. And that has been the biggest problem with his presidency, in the sense that as a politician, you might say some outrageous things to get the vote and to have people support you. But when you become president, you're no longer president of Republicans or president of the red state. You will become the president of the United States, and you fight for the interests of everyone. Donald Trump failed in that. And that is why people came out to say, okay, you know what? Yeah, you are definitely not a politician. Stay in the business world and manage your businesses. They revoked the mandate from him. And now let me come back. I want us to dwell more on how this election would impact us and should impact us. There are a lot of hard feelings we can put in. There are a lot of mistakes that have been made. But I want to quote you guys a very simple mistake that most of us, we did not even know that was happening in front of us. When the guys of Black Lives Matter stood up and said, no, we cannot allow our brothers to be killed like that without any police accountability. We cannot allow Black men being targeted, Black women being killed indiscriminately by the police. They didn't say by white police officers, they say by the police, okay? And suddenly it becomes all life matters. No, that wasn't it. And now guess what they did? The Democrats, and this is why I will indict them, they joined in with the bandwagon and they started pulling down Confederate statues. And I asked myself this question: how will pulling down General Lee's statues change from me being shot in the street? You see, it's because our messaging is not tailored, and that is why even our votes, even if we come out in record numbers, our votes don't matter because we don't vote to what actually benefits us. We don't vote for self-interest. We vote for the generality, and that's not how election goes. Think about it. The biggest vote you can vote is the education council in your community. How many Black people send their children to those, go to those small education board commissions to participate there? That is where they put in the racist curriculum that they teach our children. How many of us participate at the council level? That is where they make those laws that affect gentrification and all the police brutalities, and where, I mean, let us even go a little bit further. How many of us run for office to be the GA or to be the, the GA in our local councils. What people don't understand is this: the laws are being made principally at the local level more than at the national level that affects minority disproportionately. And so the whole Trumpism issue, you cannot solve it. It's self-interest. Those voting for Trump are not bad people. They are good citizens. The issue is they support Trump because, for example, if I'm a big business person and Trump gives me tax break, okay, and Biden says I'm going to increase tax on the billionaires, I'm not going to vote for Trump because I love Trump, what Trump is saying. I'm going to vote for Trump because his policies are actually benefiting me. So what I want us to do is, in this conversation, if we can narrow it to how are we going to make Biden and Kamala work for us, how are we going to make the local community, how are we going to flip them to represent our values? Because Black people mostly align with Democrats in social issues, economic issues, they align. The only difference with Black people, which I've noticed from my own small perspective, is that most Black people are kind of conservative when it comes to marriage, when it comes to religion. Black people are mostly conservative. So there is this conflicting view where some Black people will support Donald Trump, and you'll be like, why? It's simply because they are against gay rights. They don't believe that a man should get married to a man. And so our votes don't count as it should because we are not focused on the Black agenda. Black people should be focused on the Black agenda. For example, we should say, okay, if you are in the Black caucus, we want reparation to be the first on our topic. We want police reform to be the second. We want income redistribution to be the third. So we put it there and we have this agenda. If any politician don't stick to it, we kick him out. We don't vote somebody because he is Black or white. We vote people who represent our interests. So I think that Black people should use this opportunity because Biden said, I'm going to do criminal justice reform. Let us say, okay, Biden, criminal justice reform is on the top of our list. If you guys don't fix it in your first 4 years, the second, when you come to renew your mandate, don't count on us. You have 4 years to do criminal justice reform. You have 4 years to initiate the reparation, to bring the reparation commission to work for us. You have 4 years to make sure that there is police brutality is eradicated. You have 4 years to make sure that gentrification in Black neighborhoods stops. So if we don't hold them to these specific values and demand it from them, the fault is ours, not theirs, because politics is a messy game, as they say. You go in for self-interest. And I think Black people, not totally our fault, but we have been lacking in that aspect of self-preservation. We are one of those people that we will go and march for the gay people, we'll march for Israel, we'll march for this, we'll march for that. But when it comes to us, we are not that active. So Black people should start being active about Black issues. I cannot go to extinguish the fire from a building when my own car is on fire. So the Black community needs to ask themselves, how do we make our vote count? How do we participate in local elections? How do we make sure that Trumpism never comes up again? Because the idea with Trumpism was people were supporting their interests. Mitch McConnell and the others, they wanted to put in a conservative Supreme Court justices in the Supreme Court. So they went with the Trump wagon, and guess what? They got it. Now we have a conservative bench. The conservatives are the majority in the Supreme Court. They wanted to give tax break to the rich. They stick with Donald Trump. What did he do in his first term? He cut taxes for the rich and for the wealthy. So that is how you vote. So Black people need to vote strategically. We should not, believe me, the world is a nasty place. People will take advantage of you. So we need to focus our energy to do the right thing. That works for us. Thank you.
Very, very well said. And Kenon, you could take over this and run with it, and anybody, but you highlighted some important things, and I just want to point out, reparations. Prepare yourself, folks. We're going to have a conversation on that. Not today, but I'm hoping all of you will be joining. We got to have a conversation on that, but go ahead, Kenon.
Okay, I just want to touch on what Denis said about the self-preservation of Black people, people of color in this country. When it comes to our wealth, like I mentioned earlier, of us having less than 0.5% of 1% of the wealth in this country, part of that is because we gave it up. So when you say that we should work on our self-preservation, the problem is that under the civil rights situation with Martin Luther King, we basically integrated ourselves and got rid of some of our businesses that were thriving. So, for example, imagine if we didn't give up the sports league that we had, or if we created other sports leagues. So we had the baseball league, Negro leagues. Imagine if all those great black players who've been playing over the years were in their own leagues. Imagine if all the highly percentage of black players at the NFL and the NBA were playing for a black-owned league. We would have that money. We can go back to Black Wall Street and toss over in Oklahoma, where they basically blew the whole thing up, where they had everything they needed. They had hospitals, schools, banks, and they blew it up with World War I airplanes. They flew over and bombed it. And you heard a song named after from the Gap Band, who was named after that street corner of Greenwood and Appleton. What did they say? You dropped a bomb on me. And then what? So that goes to another point of this self-preservation. One of the things, I don't know if you've been hearing this slogan in America, is that vote like your life depends on it. It's been said over and over and over again on black radio stations and black media, and I'm sure it's on other stations as well. But I find that funny in a time where there are Trump supporters out there who are willing to kill and die for their rights at this point. Because when we go to the point you said about people voting for their interest, one of those things is that people are voting for the interest to protect the right to protect themselves. Due to the fact that you have Joe Biden, who's proposing a tax plan on owning assault rifles, even though, to be technical, this is an AR-15. This is not an assault rifle. This is a sporting rifle. The AR stands for Armalite, the company who created this gun. It's a semi-automatic weapon that shoots one round every time I pull my trigger. No magazine, nothing in there. But every time I pull my trigger, one bullet comes out. If I go, yeah, that's pretty fast, but it's not like that, okay? That's the first thing. The other thing about that is, this proposed tax plan would say that it will be, Joe Biden would force semi-automatic rifle owners to either participate in a gun buyback program. And if you don't know any history about gun buyback programs in the history of this world, usually the slaughter came after that. From Armenia and Turkey to Germany and the Nazis. And it could happen here if we do the same thing. And people are afraid of that. So fears and emotions are motivating people to vote for their lifestyle. And so with that $200 tax stamp or buyback, you would either, or register their firearm under a National Firearms Act, which requires the payment of a $200 tax. Would extend to AR-15s, other common household rifles, and anyone who doesn't pay would have to face 10 years in prison or a $10,000 fine. What that also says is that, I'm moving on quickly, forgive me for this, is that basically you can pay up to $1,000 to register this weapon, which I already paid close to $1,000 for, and just 4 high round capacity magazines, which mean over 10. These are 30 and 40 round magazines. So I would have to pay $1,000 just to keep these in my presence. Meanwhile, I have way more. So now I got to come out of my pocket to pay to protect myself. Meanwhile, there are militias out there forming around this country who are threatening the citizens to fight for what they want to have in their freedoms. And in that case, there's also black men who are voting Republican for this very reason, to protect themselves. Because when you say that racism won't end, who owns more guns in this country? White or black people? Well, not all white people are racist and want to kill you, but there are enough of them that do. So for me to go out and vote for 2 politicians who have hurt my people, and then turn around and vote for somebody who's gonna make me pay a tax to own something I already purchased legally with a background check, meanwhile a criminal can go out in the street and buy just as any other gun. People say, oh, these are dangerous. These are involved in school shootings or in shooting sprees. But ask yourself, 90% of the time when there's a murder in the street, they're done with these. And one of the things when they're done with these, and that's another thing that's going to come into problem, they're going to say you can't have more than 10 bullets in your magazine. And this holds 19, plus I can keep 1 in the chamber. So for people who say, well, that's too many bullets, how do you need all those? If you were being attacked by 3 or 4 people and they were moving, you might miss, first of all. And also, if I had 2 5-round magazines, it wouldn't slow me down any bit, because all I would have to do is, boom, pow, 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 drop, put another one in, boom, pow, 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 pow. And I gotta be, you see me as a person, as a black man that has multiple magazines. So what do you say to that one person who has 25 10-round magazines and they can still wreak their havoc?
You know what I say? You know what I say?
What's that?
Don't register them.
And then so what happens from there?
How are they going to know you had more than one of those magazines?
They don't.
How is the government going to know outside of you telling them you have them? That's my thing. The gun argument to me is a is, I don't even believe it's an actual argument because A, most of the weapons manufacturing companies in this country are in Democratic districts. The Democrats aren't anti-gun.
They are.
They talk about it because they know it. It's one of those topics here in America. You mention gun control and people go crazy. Gun control is not real. There are too many guns already in American hands for them to. The only way they can ever really control the guns is if the Americans decide to voluntarily give them up. That is not happening.
Zulu, so give me a second. The thing about that is, you're right. Most people won't give their guns back, which will lead to another problem that we may have as a country. Okay, but the fact that they're threatening to take them away, and there are already states who have made laws to make owning guns like this illegal. And if we want to talk about these Democratic-run cities that have some of the worst gun laws, where you can't own a firearm or carry one in the street, the crime rates are higher because the criminals are running in it because they know it's sweet. So imagine if you
hold on. If we're going to go overall crime rates in cities in America, the crime rates in poorly run Republican cities, where meth, I can take you to Republican cities where you see meth heads all over the damn city.
That has nothing to do with guns, though.
Auckland, Ohio, a Republican city that is constantly doing construction, but it's so goddamn poor. All my friends who live in Auckland, Ohio are among the poorest in America.
Hey, I live in Alabama, so I can testify.
Pardon?
Come in, Doc.
Yes, there are poorly run cities in this country that have a lot of violence. This is true. But they're not a monopoly of Democratic cities. They're not, Democrats don't have a monopoly on poorly run cities. Democrats don't have a monopoly on cities with high gun violence. That's not true. The highest
you just mentioned poverty
in America aren't in Democratic cities, though. They are in all Republican cities where the governments the Republican governments don't give a fuck about those people. Mitch McConnell is from the poorest state in the county, Kentucky. The amount of gun violence in Kentucky, it just doesn't get talked about because when black people do it, it's black on black violence. Oh, it's this huge thing. It's a whole culture thing. When white people do it, lone wolf, it was just one guy. It was a bunch of militias. It was, it's never, it's the whole white people who are doing it. To me, we as a people have always been fighting, even in Africa. Within the same countries within Africa, there are people always fighting. It's our nature for human beings to fight, to bang on each other. That's what we do. We bang on each other. It's not necessarily a positive or negative thing. It's just what the fuck we do. Because at the end of the day, if we come together and we create a community, it's going to need soldiers like you who are able to fight. It's going to need soldiers like you who are like, yeah, you have the weapons. Soldiers like me that I'm like, okay, try not to miss. I know you might miss, but let's train for not missing. That's what we should train for. Less bullets, easy.
Can we let Duane speak on this for a second? I see his face brewing.
I wanted to bring in Adrienice and then Duane.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we talking about guns now? That's the topic.
We're talking about how you move forward, but I understand how we're talking about guns in the ground.
Voting for your lifestyle.
How do we move forward in such a divided country?
So let me just start with policing. I think we can police, a lot of the times we can police our own communities. Because if you notice how, say if they call up a bunch of cops because there's a bunch of guys on a block, just hanging out, they may not be doing anything, but they may be doing something, but they just look suspicious to them. So they call them all up. The first thing they do is put the black officers in front to police them anyway, just to keep them under control. So that way they don't always have to look like they're trying to target black men specifically. If it's a bunch of white officers with black cops, they're going to use those black cops to kind of calm them down. So for me, it's like, we have to be more strategic about how we can police ourselves. A lot of the times we can get through to each other better than anybody else can. We know how to talk to each other. We know what might set a young man off versus what will calm him down. So I think we need to do a better job of, first of all, figuring out where does it come from. It starts in our households. So a lot of us may have come from single parents. I think that's an issue that we definitely have to figure out. Where are the black men that are going to educate our black boys? Where are the black people that are going to educate our black women? So that way we can be a better community and a better people amongst our own communities. Because a lot of the times we're doing the damage to ourselves. It's nobody else coming in and you know, it's a lot of the damage that we're doing to ourselves, regardless of what's happening with racism. That, yes, it's very true. All that still exists. But there's a lot that we can do for ourselves that we don't do. And so I think we need to start with how do we make change within ourselves first before we expect somebody else to come and promise all these things that they really don't care about. You know, like this country was built on racism. We came here to serve, which is what we're going to continue to do until we realize that, I mean, like I talk all the time about Black Wall Street. It wasn't like we never tried to self-persevere, right? You know, and when that got burned down to the ground, I mean, so now we need weapons, as you guys are saying. We need something to protect ourselves and protect our assets and our communities. So yes, I believe in being radical. And I just think that we just have a lot to talk about within our own community. Like more people should be on calls like this more often. So that way we can figure out what are we all thinking and how do we all feel about these things and what is the way forward? It's not enough of us that are having these conversations. And a lot of us, it's not even gonna work because a lot of us are so headstrong on what we believe. Then religion comes into play, and that's another topic. So then you have that divides us. Religion does not unite us, it divides us. I always wonder why there are so many Christian groups, but we're still divided by denominations, you know? So we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of conversations to have within our own communities that we do not have enough of. And I think that's the way forward, is to just continue to have these conversations.
Wow, very, very well. Duane, jump in.
Yeah. To answer the question, how do we move? You know, moving forward. I'm gonna echo my sister when it's the education. You know, and one thing that's I've seen just the communities that I've been a part of, like the locations. I've seen us gear our young people to be soldiers, educators, teachers, to being athletes, entertainers, business owners, you know, YouTube stars. It's just, I've seen us, the Black community, gear our young people, and these young people, they're gearing up, they're doing big things. Like most of us grew up on Lil Wayne. He's a prodigy. Bow Wow, prodigy. You know, we can go on and on in the industries of prodigy. LeBron James, a prodigy. You know, every day they was grinding, and then look at the end result. You know, he's been educated, indoctrinated in that. Imagine if we start pushing our young people to be that Barack Obama, or to be that prosecutor that's elected position in a county or city, or you know, we start pushing more in the political realm, and because we have an agenda. We have an agenda to present people, or an agenda for somebody to get behind. You know, so the way we move forward is no longer take that back seat, no longer allow you to drive the bus anymore. Like before, I just wanted to get on the bus. And so for years and years, we got on the bus, but now no, we driving this bus. But now I don't want to drive the bus. I want to drive the bus, and then I want to be able to get inside the location that where we're going to. And it has to be through education. And one thing is, we have a good example of when you're fed up to the point that other people you end up with like
muted.
Duane, you're muted. Duane, you're so passionate, you muted yourself.
Oh snap! All right, so my point is the education, and the thing is, it's not just the education of our young people. The hard part that's the easy part. They're young. That's all we can do. That's what they know. My daughters don't know nothing but unless I allow them to learn that thing because they're real young, right? But the hard part is to get us old dogs, get us to learn on our own. Just look at all of the individuals who are on this panel and the ones who are watching this. Look at your respective professions. The jobs that I had that I really excelled on, I worked on those jobs after I was off work. You know what I mean? I didn't just go to work and work those jobs. Those are the jobs that I probably got terminated from. But the ones that I went home and I did that extra study, I made sure I was on point. Just waiting for that one guy to call out so I could take his spot, so I can get more money. You know what I mean? But we're going to have to almost take that same approach with understanding how our government works. Because if we need to work, because a lot of times, you know what? Government was my favorite, civics, all that was my favorite subject in school. But that's not the majority of the people. That was the worst subject. And so a lot of us don't know how a bill, like in Virginia, to pass a law, it has to be put up and voted just to be reviewed. And then they say they want to review it. Then they push it to the next year to vote on it. And then if they vote on it, not that January, but the January of the following year is when it goes in effect. But a lot of people don't know that if there's a law that needs to be changed, that's a 3-year process in Virginia. But if I don't have political patience, you know, then I'm gonna get frustrated. And then now I'm going to push the rhetoric that you hear when people talk about government and you listen to them like, did you even go to school? Because so it's just we have to have an understanding how our government works so we can work it, not so they can work us. So we the people can be United States, or we can be United Nations, since we got some international stuff going on, you know. But that's what I see. And then to my brother point about the gun, at least, and I might be wrong, I'm not too big on it. All right, I'm not too big on it, and I know how to squeeze hammers, but I ain't gonna show nothing, right? But what my understanding is, reason why the tougher gun laws started coming out, I mean the real big push is because of the mass shootings in America. And then like I'm a person who has a felony, you know, so I can't own a firearm. But what I'm saying is I can always remember when you think about guns, oh man, he must have been a criminal, must have been an ex-felon who did that. But all the mass shootings was done by law-abiding citizens with guns, but they had mental issues. You know what I mean? That could have been identified, or they couldn't have been identified. But my understanding about the gun issue is just trying to make it tougher for people who are mentally challenged and you know, that with guns, because guess what? We all know Alabama, Maryland, Canada, Virginia, we all know if someone want a gun to go do something funky, it's about to get funky. You know what I mean? That's not going to stop. Yeah.
Kenon.
Yeah. So I don't want to touch on the gun thing too long, because my point of bringing it up is I have reason for it. So first of all, when you say we talked about this on the phone the other day about the mental illness aspect of gun ownership. We watched the guy at the Navy Yard shoot up people when he already had previous mental issues before. They rehired him and gave him a gun to work on the Navy Yard. So it's not always the citizens. It is our government, the ATF, or the state police departments that run your background checks to do a little more due diligence. But for example, this year, this has been the highest year of gun sales in America history that's ever been recorded. So now you have a whole bunch of people that don't know how to use their guns that have them. But as we saw in 2012, which was also a big year, 2016, many of those guns went right back to the stores and were resold once the panic was over. And so when we say that it's making it tougher to make for people who have mental issues, no, that tax deal was not about mental issues. It was about people buying their guns back, the government buying your guns back. Like I said, if you don't know the history of Turkey and Armenians, they bought their guns back first, then they forced them back, and then they killed them. So with that being said, it leads to a place that once you disarm the nation like Hitler did, now you leave them vulnerable to be slaughtered by the very government that's supposed to protect them. And that leads to fear, which I also led to the point earlier about emotions. People are wrapped up in this emotionally. I'm not scared of this because as soon as this show is over, I'm gonna dump all this in the river anyway. So I won't have all that I just showed on TV. I'm dumping in the river. I'm losing the boat in an accident. But when you said that, how do they know we have them? They don't know how many magazines we own. People in California hid their magazines when the laws were over, they brought them back out. But the guns they do know because you go through a registry when you buy them anyway. They do a background check, and the state police department knows you bought that gun. So your address is probably on some little ping of gun ownership or a little box or a file. 1 second. But I just wanted to touch on that because what it all boils down to is that people are leading into fear, even whether it was about getting rid of Trump off. If you didn't watch TV the last almost 4 years, like myself, you wouldn't have had any reason to be mad at Donald Trump other than what they tell you to be mad at him for. I mean, I hear all the things that were negative. I saw all the BS that was going on, but we had Bush, we had Reagan, and those two jokers did way more to us as Black people than Donald Trump did in 4 years. I'm not defending him. I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm calling myself a Republican in the stance of voting for my lifestyle, so therefore I don't have the Second Amendment taken away from me to protect myself. Am I doing that emotionally? No, because I already don't really believe in the system. But I vote to participate so I can at least say, hey, I did it, and I'm gonna watch you now. So when things change, I can say that I was a part of that change if it happens. But we can't continuously be led by fear to make our decisions, and that's going to also keep us divided because the Black folks will keep on saying, he got to go, he got to go. And if you got white folks saying, we don't want to lose our guns, and we're going and crying and praying for Trump not to get put out of the White House, then hey, we're putting ourselves in a further division. And that's not going to change until we come to, once again, the education to understand how the system works, knows how it works for us, which will alleviate a lot of those emotions once you have logical understanding and replacement of fear and you don't really have the full knowledge of what's going on. So when you have, like you said earlier, Duane, when people talk and they don't sound like they're very educated because they might know just a little bit of the topic. And that's that little bit of the topic that got their emotions worked up. And we're all victims of that at some point.
And you know, and go ahead. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes. I just want to give a note to our viewers. This is a very, very important in-depth conversation. We cannot have all of it today, but I promise you, and I'm banking on this very, very well formulated panel to continue to come to have this conversation, because let me give you a little perspective. For those of us watching from Canada, you know, we watch from out in, and sometimes we strive. Maybe we have 1 or 2 or 3 American friends, and you know, you talk to them. But I think it's really, really important and fantastic that we have a slew. You know, we have a panel of 5, 6 Americans with varied perspectives, and that are touching on the issues frankly, authentically, and are saying it as it is. So that is a really important point, and I would really love for us to, you know, continue this conversation on other issues, not just on the issue of the elections, but as other issues that are critical to you come up. I think it's important that we have you to talk and have other people listen and learn. I'm going to go to you, Zulu, but I wanted to also give a shout out to our viewers. We have a lot of people putting comments in the comment section. Shout out to Diana Nettles, to Max Clark, to Abena Oguzi, to Ed Gang, and to everybody who's joined us here today. Zulu, go ahead.
I feel like the best way for us to move forward, ideally, is to realize that not everybody who looks like us is part of our community. Not everybody looks like you can't save people that don't want to be saved. You can't necessarily work with people that don't want to do anything. The people that want to sit there and wait to be saved, for me, it's like, look, man, when somebody does come along and say, hey, this is how we can do it, they go, oh, no, you're this, you're that, you're that. Barack Obama signed the Indigenous Peoples Act day 1. That to me was the most important legislation he signed his entire presidency. But people don't understand the significance of that legislation. They don't understand how much protections internationally that legislation gives people who are black, not just here in America, not just natives here in America. If you identify as indigenous, because all black people are indigenous, but you identify it globally and you're here, you're protected under the law internationally in America. But you'll have black people who say, "Oh, he didn't do anything for us," and that's where you come to, like you were saying earlier, Denis, where there are some people who just don't have that education. Not necessarily their fault, not necessarily something they did, because we also have to remember America is a colonized land. We have to remember that the people that we are ultimately talking about fighting or talking about building a community from are colonists, and they have spent millions of dollars and years to perfect the education system they educate. Like, I remember having a conversation with a coworker, and he was trying to tell me that South America and North America are two different landmasses, like they're not connected. And I was like, no, they're physically connected. People can literally walk across. It's like, no, they're not. There's something that's blocking it. I'm just like, you're an adult. We're working in this, like, we're adults. Like, what do you mean? Like, what do you even mean? And for me, it's just like, the fact that there's so many people like that lets me know it's not a coincidence. There's just too many people for it to be a coincidence. Too many people who are just simply don't know basic geography. Too many people that, like the whole black and African American thing. I'm Sierra Leonean. When I respond to where you're from in Africa, I don't just say I'm African. The first thing I say, I'm Sierra Leonean. Africa is like a second moniker. So just that little bit alone, that's like some knowledge that we have of who we are. Whereas there's a lot of people here who are just so lost they don't know who they are, and that adds to the craziness in the community. But that's where I go back to run. We all have to run, all of us. We might not fucking win, but even if we run and we plant seeds to where a young person who's maybe more articulate, a young person who has maybe more better access to more funding, will run. And my last point on the gun thing here, because a lot of people don't realize that I am pro-gun. I know how to use gun. I have guns. I just don't talk about it. I just don't show it about it because in my opinion, nobody needs to know what I have. So if they come after me for them, hey, surprise, you don't know what I have. But the whole thing with guns is every time they bring up the gun debate, I look at all the other things they might be passing, all the other laws they might be talking about, that they know that everybody for that 2 weeks period, people on both sides of the gun debate are going to be yelling so much about it to each other that they're not paying attention to anything else they're doing. It happens time. There's no way in the United States of America for them to have gun control. There's too many guns already in the population. And the mental thought of the population is, well, you're not taking my gun. You know, there are a lot of people who even know they're not going to win the fight if the government comes after them. But the mentality is, well, I'm going down with a couple of them. That's the mentality for a lot of people. That's not every gun owner. I'm not saying that's most gun owners. But I'm saying if the government at any point tried to forcibly take guns from people, good luck. Like, good luck with that.
I agree with you, Zulu.
That's my opinion.
My only thing I mentioned that for, again, is that fear, because when you look at that proposed bill, one of the things that it says is 10 years in jail if you don't register your firearm, or $10,000, something like that. The whole point is that when you propose that to somebody who just bought a gun because they were afraid that maybe something might pop off, and then a few weeks or months go by, nothing pops off, and everything looks like it's peachy keen again, those people now being asked to turn their gun in or register it are now going to have fear that 10 years in jail or that fine. So that right there will allow people to do that. Not every citizen in this country who owns a gun is willing to say, you know what, you come after me, come take it if you want to. Everybody ain't wearing this T-shirt. Well, come and take it.
Well, then that's where I go. Then those people should be allowed to sell back their guns.
Those
people should be allowed to go give back their guns if they feel comfortable enough to be like,
hey,
I'm putting it
Zulu.
back. All right, there you go. It's yours.
Zulu, let me ask you guys a question.
Yes.
So why, instead of us fighting to keep our guns, why don't we just fight for a better society where we have less people who are poor so they don't get into the life of crime, where we have free health care, not even free, we have basic and necessary health care, where we have to take care of those with mental health, where we have those necessity that we don't need to fight, why don't we participate in such a way that we vote laws that protect us and our being and our personality, that we don't have to carry a gun to protect ourselves? Why don't we?
Without soldiers, without soldiers willing to do that, willing to protect those communities, without certain people understanding that I'm not necessarily going to be the nice guy in the community, I might have to be just a soldier.
No, guns don't protect people.
Black Wall Street happens.
Guns don't protect people. That's the first thing we have to accept.
I'm saying if Black Wall Street was armed to the gills,
protect people.
That doesn't happen.
Denis,
Black
I
Wall
understand
Street had their
what
own
you said.
planes, that doesn't happen.
All right. So Denis, wrap up your thought, and then we'll go to Duane, and then we'll come back to Adrienice.
Okay, so what I was trying to say is this. What we are doing is putting Band-Aid on the problems. There is insecurity for Black boys on the street. They get shot by gangs, they get killed by police. Even if you take away the guns, they're gonna stab each other. The police is gonna teaser you and give you brain damage. My issue is we live in a modern society where we have set up norms, how to handle societal problems. Now we can try to resist the society and the norms, or we can try to be proactive in it. So what I'm trying to say is, I think with the election of Biden and this is an open book. What Black people should do is we should put our priorities and say, okay, as a Black man, the most important thing for me is my security, or is education for my children, or is income equality, and then we put them on our ballot and we force those that believe in those ideas and we vote them so that they stand for those ideas, and we go into Congress, we vote in those laws that protect us. What I'm saying is this: there's not enough AR-15s to protect all of us. So what we need are good laws that protect civilians against police. We need to make police officers accountable. I'd rather have a police officer who tries to abuse me arrested and tried and go to jail than trying to do a shootout with the police. I might not end up alive. So what I'm trying to do is, we know that the cats have been stacked against us, but what can we do proactively to make life better for us, to mitigate the dangers that we face day to day? That is really what I'm trying to get from this conversation. So I would like to have a concrete argument that makes our lives, our daily lives better.
Education is it.
So,
education is it, knowing the laws. We have laws that protect us against police abusing us. We have laws that say a police kills a citizen, they're supposed to be hung according to law. The problem is, it goes back to where I started from. Most people don't have the money to go have a competent lawyer to come and tell them, hey man, that person violated your human rights. They didn't violate your Black rights, they violated your human rights. Under international law, that person should be executed. But we don't know the rules. We have all the laws we need. We don't need new laws. The problem is, how do we force politicians to enforce the law when they don't want to?
Okay, Duane, I want Duane to weigh in here and Adrienice, and then we're gonna start to wrap up our conversation. Duane, come on.
This right here is it comes down to it still comes down to that education. It still comes down to the education. But it's such, and when you're dealing with a countryside, what you gonna put everybody back in class? You know what I mean? This is the part of citizenship that that is missed, that or is overlooked or whatever. This is the part that you play in the grand scheme of things. And then it's like, okay, I no longer want to take an active, inactive role in the things that concern me. You know what I mean? Like everything else that concern me, I'm taking 100% active role in being an active participant in this. And if I'm in a position where I can't, or I'm not in a position to run, then I'm going to support the person in position. Because if I'm upset, or if I'm disliking somebody for their views, or because I feel somebody else is better for the job, You know what I mean? Because I can have a company and hire people, but I mean, I'm pulling from the applications that I get in. You know, moving forward, is we got to put in the education. Now, the gun thing the only thing that that where the Second Amendment rights activists lose me is, tell me how many guns you're buying, an average gun owner is buying per month, and how often are you using your firearm per month, and then is that more important to you than the education of our kids, to the education of our next leaders? Because I'm gonna tell you like this: we put more money in the athletics side of school, you know, than we do the education part. So it's just like my Second Amendment rights, like a lot of that push could be used to the education fight, and from that education fight, we protect more of our Second Amendments and our First Amendment, all our amendment right. It's like we need to have a society that is not only educated, but it's active in society, not active in their life in society. And unfortunately, we got to get back to that, because that's the only way. That's a pathway that I can see that we can move forward. But that's a big task, because you're a country worth of people. 74 million voted this way, 71 million voted this way. That's a tough task ahead of us in this country. Tough. But we're in this together, though. And one thing about the black community, we have to learn how to work with each other. You know what I mean? Because I can get a lot of my non-African American minorities, or the majority, I can get them out to way more of my events, more events of people who doing big things in our area, than I can get my people. My people won't come out unless they don't have something to do tomorrow. Like the Rona, you know, we didn't have nothing to do. And then all the activists and all the people who've been grinding on the pavement this whole time, now, what? We got 100 people want to come out here? Let's go. Let's go. You know, it's just because we got to take a more active role. Yeah, that's all I got.
Very well said. Come on in, Adrienice.
Well, I mean, I agree with the education system. And then I just want to basically say that, you know, what are we teaching them? You know, like what are they really learning? Because at the end of the day, I graduated from high school. I don't think that I learned nearly as much as what life experience has taught me. So I think that if we completely revamp what the kids are being taught, then they'll have a better chance at being successful, you know, after college or after high school, you know? So I think if we need to revisit the conversation of, first of all, what's in the curriculum? Are they learning stocks and bonds? Are they learning the stuff that's going to really make a difference, or really give them a chance if they choose not to go to college? Because let's be real, college is expensive. It's not for everybody. There's been a lot of people who are successful without it. So where are we missing the mark? There is a lot of, I would say, loopholes within the educational system. So I think we need to just go back and revisit that and get people on board with, you know, how do we change our education system? And a lot of the times it can start at home. They have access to the internet. The internet is, I mean, if they know what right stuff to research and find out, like now you guys have given me a lot to research on gun control and gun laws. But so they know the right stuff to research on, then they have a better chance of finding out the information on their own. A lot of the times they're spending all the time on their phones anyway. So if you constantly put the right information in front of them, or give them an opportunity to know what they should be going, you know, where they should be going and looking for the information, they a lot of the times can find it on their own, because you can't teach somebody who doesn't want to be taught. But for the ones who do want to be taught, you know, I think those are the ones who you have to try to save. So I don't think it's about trying to save everybody. I think you just do what you can. You know, a lot of our young people are lost. That's just the truth. And they're caught up in the wrong things.
I just want to clear real quick. when I say education, it don't necessarily mean in the schoolhouse. You know what I mean? Because a lot of us stop teaching at home. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? But see, but as a private citizen, and we're in a conversation, I can say that to you. But as a government, who are you telling me what to do in my house? You know, but it's just like we have to get back to if me as the parent, if these values are so strong that I'm willing to spend cash money on and arming myself and to protect my rights and stuff, then why am I not teaching my kids? Because the people who have been on the other side of the issues that I'm for, they teach their kids. They teach their kids their thought. But we don't. We want our kids, oh, don't think like me. No, think just like me. So you're my child. I mean, you're in my house. So I just think that it's a tough ask to say, oh, you need to learn more. You can't ask somebody to learn more, but that's what it's going to take.
All right. So let me throw this as I ask each of you to give your closing comments. Staying on that topic of education. Yesterday we heard that there is an educator in the White House in the name of Jill Biden. And she talked about how it was a great day for educators and that, they are going to have their voices heard. I can speak from that point, coming from a home where my parents were also teachers. Teachers always get the shittiest end of the stick. For some reason, I don't know why in every society, the educators always end up with the lowest pay. They get the shittiest end of the stick. So after all of what each of you have said, do you think that the education in America is going to, the system of education, formal and the informal, as my brother Duane talked about at home, is going to see a new facelift, given that you have an educator in the White House who's determined to keep working as an educator and besides her duty as First Lady? Kenon.
Closing remarks. I think the greatest thing that happened with the corona, the shutting down the schools, is now kids are basically just forced to learn off the internet. And with having parents at home to where they can ask questions that they couldn't ask a teacher because, well, there's certain questions you can't ask teachers in schools. That's just it, you know. I think it was a positive. The amount of homeschooling I'm seeing, the amount of positive homeschool I'm seeing, the amount of even among the young white folks, because I work at a bar and some of the conversations I'm hearing, some of the stuff we talked about here, they're talking about. And it's like, that put a smile on my face because it's like, hey, right on. You're like 25 years old and you're thinking in a grander scheme of things. I think education is the key. I don't think state-led education is necessarily the way we're going to achieve it. A, because it's not standard, and B, well, there's some states, you alluded to that earlier. Originally, every state's supposed to be its own country, and the further the states are from DC, the more they act like their own country. There's some stuff, because I sat on the school board in New Mexico. They teaching some archaic shit there, and without a standard, national standard, it's kind of hard to rely on that. So the best thing we can do as a community is talk to our children, have more Zoom sessions where they can sit in and add to this conversation. They might have a perspective from this that we completely miss, because I don't know about you guys, but I'm a little older now, so there's some things I'm set in my way, and I know this because I've caught myself being like, why do you even think like this? This is not how it always is, because it happens to everyone. Once you get to a certain age, you start getting set in your way, you start not thinking, because even the solutions we're giving, those are solutions for us that might not work for the next generation. That might not work for the YouTube guy who can make 5 million. Tell the guy, hey, that 5 million you make in YouTube, don't do that. I wish I was doing that instead of making drinks at the bar during the corona time. Like just things like that. I feel like it's our generation that we'll worry about, because it really is our gap here between the old powers that have taken back control of the country and whether we are just going to let them continue what they used to for a while. But I don't think we're ever going to go back there. I think I think Donald Trump was a blessing in disguise. We kind of needed that whatever he was. We needed that person to kind of like get everybody okay, maybe not. Because I have a lot of Republican friends who my accent goes away when I'm speaking around people because I had to adjust. That forget sometimes I'm a foreigner. So sometimes they used to say certain things who are now coming up apologizing. I had a guy from the bar next door crying about how he feels so bad because the guy's in the kitchen. He's doing this for them. He's working for them, and this bullshit about how the foreigners demonize. So to me, the psyche of America has been changed to where the America we live in now is not necessarily America we grew up in. Yes, people have still been killed by cops. Yes, politicians in certain places are still robbing people. But that's everywhere. Coming from Africa, that's why I don't buy most of this politics. Because in Africa, to me, Africa is these minors for corrupt politicians. This is the big leagues. You come here if you want to make the big money. Like what we're doing there in Africa is bad. But some of the stuff that's done here and done open, smiled. I remember we can't expect the system to fix it. It's not going to work. We have to be the community. If we're refusing to join it by running for office, by implementing what we believe in office, then the choice is to create our own communities. But unfortunately, that means we have to leave a lot of people that are going to look like us. We have to leave a lot of people that just aren't ready to not be that reliant on that. There are people who are angry because Donald Trump's platinum plan is not coming through. But I'm just going to, he called it the platinum plan. That's the same version of racism as making a brain surgeon the head of your urban department. Like, he doesn't know anything about why is he the head of the urban department? Because he's black. Like, that's a level of racism that's there. But some people, it's just like, oh no, it was going to help us. I'm like, come on, son. So for me, if all six of you are always welcome in my home. If you guys want to come and eat, you're welcome in my home. If you guys want to come, need some help, you're welcome in my home. All of you are, because your mindset. I know I can communicate. I know I can work with you. I know I can get to a certain point. But I think that's one thing we have to kind of achieve. Some of us just have this big heart and we want to bring our whole community, like everybody who looks like us, with us. And there's nothing wrong with having that feeling. It's just not fortunately, it's not reality. Like it's.
Adrienice, I see you are.
I'm just thinking in terms of Harriet Tubman, like she had to shoot some people to keep going. So I mean, you have to do what you have to do for the betterment of everybody. You're not going to be able to save everybody, because that was my idea. I wish we could take everybody. I wish everybody could come. But the truth of it is that you might have white people who are more willing to help you than your own. That's just the truth. Yeah. We wouldn't have gotten as far without them. Like, without them helping us, we would. So we're not. I think we're here to say that not all white people are bad. Not all black people are good. So it's just.
All folk ain't kinfolk.
Say that again.
All skin folk ain't kinfolk.
Exactly. So I think if we just learn that and we continue that. That just to empower those who are ready to be empowered, and just keep pushing forward, keep trying to learn things that there's something that we all can learn from this. I'm sure from this conversation today, there's something that we've all probably learned or, to think more about. So I think we just have to continue these conversations. I don't know what else to do besides continue these conversations and to keep channeling this energy into conversations that I'm having with my peers, with my family members, bringing these conversations up at the table and getting our older people on board too, because some of them have a very open mind. Not all of them are closed-minded. I just think they don't have the internet, and that's kind of where they're lost. We have more information at a faster rate coming to us. They don't. So I think we need to keep them in tune with what's going on, and not forget about them as well as our young people.
Thank you, Denis.
Thanks, Adrienne. Thanks, Zulu. Thanks, Ken, for all of your good contribution. I'm really happy to be part of the panel. And I really want to share you guys a short testimony about my personal life. I had never really understood that there's something called structural literacy. So I coined the phrase. It is the education that you get doesn't permit you to operate in this and be productive in your society. So one thing which us as Blacks, I face that a lot in Africa, and here in the US, I'm still seeing the same pattern. Why we need, I'm happy that Madam Biden is in the White House. I'm hoping that we're going to put more emphasis on education. You know, going to school is one thing, but receiving the education that helps you transform your life and your community is another issue. The problem we have is that the education that we have is a corporate education. It makes us to get an education to look for a job. But now, because we had moved from the community college and the system where you went to school to get training, where you can fend for yourself and make something and earn a living. Now we wrap up student loans, which we cannot pay back, and we have to work and we cannot raise families to pay back those student loans. Now think about it this way. If we had the education that helps us become manufacturers, think about it. If I went to school in Akron and LeBron James become a big superstar and I can produce shoes, the sneakers that LeBron James can use and sell, we will keep money in the Black community. If I can go to school and learn agriculture and grow crops and feed my family and my neighbors, we will not be worried about our health, eating this GMO food that kills us. Now, our women are having cancer and all of that. If we could go to school and we have more doctors and we open Black hospitals where our women can give birth and be treated like humans, that will cure some of the problems we are having. The problem, I think, with the education which we have is that the education we are receiving as Black people is not to make us solvent. It's not to make us independent. It's not to make us stand on our own. It's to make us lean on the corporate America. It's to make us always want to go to them for validation. And I think that what we have to do is to push for educational reform that makes us able to go to community college and learn skills that can help us become IT starters. We can start up our own IT companies. We can start up our own manufacturing companies behind our homes. We don't need to have Dollar General selling us cheap products that we can produce. We don't need Walmart selling us junk food, that we could grow better food around our own community and live well. And the last thing about education, I wish that Blacks in America and Blacks in Africa were educated about land possession. Most Blacks live in urban areas. They don't own any land. And the land that was promised to us when the Blacks were freed from slavery has not been given to us. We are not asking, where is the land? So we need to educate ourselves about the value of land and why Black people need to own land. Land is one of the greatest properties. That's why Europeans left Europe, came to America, because they were serfs in Europe. They were not allowed to own land and all of those things. So I think that our education, we should not depend on them to educate us. Let us see how we can educate ourselves. Let's sit back and say, okay, as a caucus, as Black people, what do we want from the Biden administration? And I think if we don't act proactively, we'll be back here again, maybe after Biden, we still have the same issues because we haven't set our priorities. I think Black people need to stand up. Life is not about doing what you want. It's about acting in a gang, being in a group, being in a super PAC where you fight for your interests. And I think if Black people come together, we educate ourselves, we put our priorities, and we hand on our politicians that we have voted, they're gonna do what we want them to do. But if we don't do that, we're gonna be back here again having the same conversation with a new president. And we are happy that this time around we had a transgender who is a president. It's not gonna change my condition. So I think that we should look at the bigger picture and hold these guys to work for our own interests. Thank you, guys. And that's my own small contribution.
Thank you very much. And we'll go to Duane and we'll get Kenon to wrap up.
Okay. I guess the touch on the point of the Madam Biden. That's what we said, the Vice President. Okay, Madam Biden being in as a First Lady, education. What I would like mainly from that is having more minority teachers in rural areas, because there was a push to have minority teachers. And I have several male friends who are teachers in the inner cities, you know, in more urban areas, and you know they still need black teachers, minority teachers or minority teachers in those areas, but especially in the rural areas. That's the first thing I would like to see addressed. And then the second thing is, along with those hires, is actually commensurate pay for teachers. I think one of us had touched on the job. I think it might have been Dennis. The tough job that teachers do have, you know, and the tough job that we have teaching in this digital age, you know, and so more minority hires. Where I live, I had a friend that was teaching here. She was making about 42,000. She went 30 miles up the road, which is with traffic, is 2 hours. For 30 miles up the road, she went from 42 to making 68. She's still the same type of teacher. But now you have this rural community is missing out on a teacher of the year type of teacher because she has to go and feed her family, you know. And so I would like to see more minority in rural area principals and administrators, because especially when you have a majority black, a minority area, but then when the administrators are all of the majority class and they are you know, the trend, you lose a lot in the translation. So, but yeah, I say my last point is to the Madam Biden, more minority presence in the classroom and principals and administration and in special education, and then get involved in local elections. I mean, I know this is international, which is I appreciate the opportunity, definitely. To the ones in America, get involved in your local, your local. Don't let the federal, our local politicians have more control over or more influence on our quality of life daily. So take the motivation and the new vigor and the new things we learn from the federal and take it to your school board, your county commissions and your city commissions. So that'll be my last point to this. But like once again, to be here.
Thank you so much for coming and for your words, Kenon. Over to you.
I'm gonna wrap it up as quick as I can. Just to touch on a few things that everyone spoke on in the last few minutes. When it comes to education, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, Duane, that you weren't really talking about the public education system. And then Zulu made a good point about that, is saying that it's no standard across the board for this education system. So I also understand very well the reason for that lack of standard in our education system, especially with different communities in each state, is to create further division. It's also a part of our caste system that we live in, that goes along with that racism that we talk about. It's a caste system. People are put in places, people are born in places, which also makes it hard for us to do what you say about running, because even if you run, get yourself in the public office. We talked about this the other day, Duane. You end up getting indoctrinated into the system that you now try to infiltrate in most cases. So we all need to go back to remember, we've all kind of said the same thing about community. But what we need to really remember is that our communities are based inside of an empire, ran by colonists, ran by oppressive people who create laws to keep their power in hand. So I as much as I'm for hope of changing the system that we are in, the problem is that we've seen time and time again, like Denis said about land, even if we have the land, to go back to Black Wall Street, we still could be destroyed, murdered, and burned down within this empire. So going back to what Martin Luther King said, after he realized after his years of pushing for integration, he said, I fear I have integrated my people into a burning house. And so with that being said, I feel going back to that burning house, one of the things that creates this burning house is miseducation and misinformation. But we also have things that are, put like this, name me another race in this world that has a music based around killing themselves. And when that music was not created for that point. Rap music in this country was a music that was created to create rebellion, to speak our minds and show the world what's going on in our hoods. And then it got bought out. The next thing you know, yeah, bust a gun, kill a nigga. And it's like now, you see that manifesting in our streets. We're killing ourselves. When one black man kills another black man, two black men are done and their families are hurt by that. That one's going to jail, the other one's going into the casket. So we integrated ourselves into a burning house whose education and protection is not good enough for us. We have to protect ourselves to educate ourselves. My humble belief is nothing will really get better until this shit burns down.
Wow. Very, very, very powerful conversation, folks. Please, I would love us to continue. I would love all of you to be back so that we can start to unpack the issues one by one. We spoke in generalities, even though we hit some specifics, but we will be in touch from Unfiltered. And as you all have said, it is having these conversations that is going to help us chart our path forward. One of the things that has really been missing is, as Black folk, we talk a lot, but we don't really have the conversations where we, test our views against each other and we come to a common consensus on how we want to move forward. So this is really important. I'm grateful to all of you. I'm grateful to all of our viewers. Thank you so much for such a passionate conversation.
Absolutely. Thank you for hosting us. Thank you.
Glad y'all joined me, fellas. Appreciate you too. Dennis, always good to see you. Adrienice, nice to meet you.
Thank you all.
Kenon.
Fellow viewers, thank you. Looking forward to another great conversation coming up next week with our other co-host, Wesley Petit. So have a lovely evening. There's a lot to think about.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Peace.
Yes.
Take care.
Have a good night.
All right.
Duane, you trying to set up something?
You said something to me.
I thought you were trying. I saw you set up this chat. I thought you were trying to
hey,
set up another Zoom.
I appreciate y'all getting me involved in it, man. I had a good time.
Oh man, I appreciate you joining us, man. Everybody contributed big time today. I'm glad you showed up. You joined us, bro. I really am.
Hey, look, I'm glad you put that one about the indoctrination, Joe, man, because I forgot to put it in there. I forgot to put it in there.
All good, bro. I mean, shit, I got your back, man.
Yeah.
I told you we might have opposing views, but at the end of the day, we trying to make shit better, man. We ain't out here trying to. I'm not out here. I might troll, because unfortunately, the problem is the reason why I troll the way that I do on Facebook is because of the fact that these are a lot of people that we've known for 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
That they're not going to change.
I'm your host here, Chef McFarlane. Welcome to Unfiltered.
Yeah. You gonna mute yourself now. I think he did that when he turned it off.
Yeah. Oh, is he still recording?
I think just the end of it right there. No, this is it's off the live. I don't believe anymore. Yeah, the live's over.
Yeah. But nah,
let's join our own joint. Let's join our own joint just in case.
All right.
Give me 1 minute. I'm gonna call you on your phone.